Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a great guest on. And the reason why I say this one is great is because the product that they are currently in the pre-launch stage, which they'll be launched in April, but just hearing about some of the features and the things about this product, it really hits on something that every business owner, every professional, and just people in general can really use. And that is in the area of being a personal coach for the communication and personal development, but different from your typical coach where, you have to hop on a phone call with them or you have to have meetings with them. This is actually leveraging AI technology. So it will help people in very critical areas of developing personally and as well as communication. And as we know that if you aren't able to effectively communicate with others, it will limit a lot of things that you can do in life and cause more frustration that can be avoided. So I want to welcome Balendran to the show. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Tal. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Now, before we jump into the details of the Get Me AI technology, tell us a little bit about your background.
Great. I came to Australia as a migrant refugee about 18 years ago from Sri Lanka. I didn't go to school because of the civil war. When I came to Australia, I didn't know English and I didn't have any school certificates to rebuild my life the way I wanted. So I went and learned the language, basics of English, mathematics and science, and went to university without school certificate through an alternative pathway that University of Western Sydney had to help people like myself to go and experience university education. So I went and did my computer science degree at Western Sydney Uni. And I've had, since my uni days, I've had so many different roles within startups and enterprises, mainly in technology management roles, product management, technology leadership roles. My recent venture was with a company called Blue Dot Innovation. I worked with the founders to create the technology and grew the company globally to now it's a multi-million dollar company. So my journey has been, coming to this country as a refugee and trying to rebuild my life here in a new country that had, not only the language barrier, but the cultural and social barriers. So over the past 18 months, what I been thinking about is to model the human ability to learn new skills using technology. So I've really wanted to use my experience in Australia to build a tool to help others coming to Australia and trying to integrate into the society. So that's the kind of background to myself and why I wanted to create the Get Me product.
Mhm. I mean, and that is an amazing story. I mean, like because it really speaks to, like I said, that need of breaking down the barriers to communication, which I'm sure you probably faced a ton when you first arrived. And I mean, it's an amazing story just to see how you've been able to work through that. And what was it about, like I said, when you worked with the last company and like I said, developing the technology, what really attracted you to the development side of technology?
It is, I think, for me personally, it is making things happen. Technology is a great avenue to create things and see things come to life. That was the attractive part for me. So you could just create a software and then see that in action and see that make the impact and the difference in people's lives. That's what made me go into tech in the first place.
Mhm. Now, when it came down to, deciding on a business and how you wanted to use your skill sets, one of the challenges that a lot of entrepreneurs have is really figuring out, hey, what, there's so many options. How do I choose, this is going to be my niche and this is going to be the area I focus on. So, how did, with so many other options that you had, how did Get Me become the one that won in your mind to say, hey, this is the idea I want to move forward with?
That's a great question, Terrell. I think this is coming from my desire to help people. I've been a person who been wanting to give to people and help people. Even as a kid, I would participate in community events and go and help elderly, etc. So I've been a person in sort of wanting to help and grow other people. That is the desire that drove me towards this idea. Now, personal development is expensive. Not everyone can go and hire a coach. And the coaches are subjective as well. So Get Me sounded like the intersection of me wanting to help and technology coming to make it cheaper and objective for people to get the meaningful and actionable sort of insights into how they're communicating and what they need to do to improve and take their communication to the next level. So it's my desire to help people that's gotten me into Get Me.
Awesome. Now, when you think about, like I said, those early stages of going from, hey, you started off with an idea. Now, how do we really put, legs and action to this idea? So what has that journey been like, going from the idea of Get Me to now, like you said, you're just about ready to launch in April. So how has that journey been?
Every startup goes through its own unique journeys. For Get Me, it's been, coming up with the idea and thinking about how to model human communication and technology, and then going on to convincing other people to put their money on this venture. I think that was the most difficult part, because at the start of the pandemic, I decided to get the product work started and started talking to the investors, and the economy was grinding to a halt because of the pandemic. So the lack of access to the private capital was a challenge, but managed to work with two investors to get some money in, and that's what allowed me to kick off the product engineering. So if I look back now, the journey started back in sort of April, May, right in the middle of the pandemic, and not knowing what was going to happen in the next few months or in the next few years was a challenge, because we were just getting started. So that pandemic itself brought so many challenges that you wouldn't normally face if you're in a startup. So from the idea to getting the funding and the engineering work started, engineering is challenging because we are trying to really model some subjective elements of human beings, right? Trying to understand what we are saying and how we are saying using AI is a massive challenge. So product development was an enormous challenge. But through the journey, I think we've gone through the tested and validated practices, going out to the market and really examining the market to see if there's a demand for a product like this. Right? So run the market research, talk to people with English as their second language, really figure out if there's a problem and if that problem can be solved by a tool like Get Me. So that was the first and most important thing I think I did initially, to make sure that this product is going to be commercially viable and there's a demand for it. Here we are in a couple of months, the product is going into beta. So I'm just pinching myself going, oh my God, we built a company in the midst of a pandemic and launching a product. So it's been an amazing journey to.
Also, so tell us a little bit about, some of that customer feedback. What was some of the feedback that you got, and what was some of the reaction that people had to the Get Me solution?
Excellent. So when we went and talked to people about their communication skill development needs, people sort of highlighted, yeah, there are multiple tools that we can use. We can go into education platforms like Coursera or LinkedIn Learning, etc., to develop a particular skill by doing a course. But there wasn't anything that kind of covered the entire spectrum of soft skills development, right? Understanding how someone communicates and also coach along the way as an always on coach that runs on their mobile phone. So they found the concept of having a coach that always runs on the phone with their permission, of course, privately, to give them that meaningful feedback and in the moment kind of tips to help them and develop their skills. Very attractive. They found that very attractive. I would say it's the holistic approach to communication and personal development that they liked. And of course, the advanced AI coming into the picture to build a profile of our communication style and the nuances was really good because they thought it was going to be objective. It would tell them what they need to hear, as opposed to a friend or coach telling them often what they want to hear.
And I think that's a very powerful thing because even having work with, whether it's public speakers or whether it's conference speakers, one of the critical things that I've heard a lot of communication experts say is, it may not always necessarily be, you need to fix your communication to sound like this, but part of it may be just understanding what your own style is and figuring out how to maximize it. So I think that is a great, excellent aspect of it, of people will get a chance to learn their own style.
That's right. That's where I think the machine learning and deep learning are so powerful, because given enough data, they can, with enough reliability and accuracy, kind of tell you about yourself that other people can't tell you, because it's looking at what you're saying and how you're expressing your thoughts and emotions, what intentions are in there in your communication, etc. It's not that we don't know what the gaps are. What we're lacking is the ability to get that constant feedback, so we can actually implement some mechanisms practically to improve the way we communicate.
Awesome. So now, what's the official launch date for Get Me?
It'll be sometime in the middle of April. At the moment, we're testing the product with beta customers, so that feedback will get incorporated into the product. There'll be multiple iterations before we launch to make sure the beta customers see the product functioning and meeting their requirements. So it'll be another couple of months and then 15 days before we sort of set a date for the hard to launch. So it'll be a progressive launch. Sometime in April, we release the app and make the announcement, and work with our trial partners to get the trials happening. So there's no certain date, but sometime in middle of April.
Okay, awesome. Now, where can people find you guys online to keep an eye on what's going on? So when you guys do release that official date, where can they find you?
So we can be found on social media channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or on our website, getme.ai.
Awesome. Now, I also noticed when I took a look at the LinkedIn page there's a podcast there that you guys do. What can people expect from the content you create?
That's excellent. So a product itself, doesn't have that stickiness. People need a community around a product. That's how the long-lasting success is created for a product. So we've got this community called Melbourne Communication and Personal Development that's growing really fast. So the idea is to not only just put a product out and try to sell the product, but build a community around the product. So this group is all about growth-minded people coming together to help each other. We're bringing on some really expert speakers from around the world to give them value in communication skills, leadership skills, career development, and overall personal development skills. So
Awesome.
people will be able to hear from expert speakers and professionals in personal development and communication on specific topics that they can go and implement in their day-to-day lives.
Amazing, amazing. So before we wrap up, one of the questions I love to ask every guest that comes on the show is, when you think about where you've been and you think about the journey that you've been on, what's two pieces of advice that you would share with other business owners?
I think it is very important to be authentic and tell your story. If you have a passion for a product or passion for something that you want to promote, then you got to really be authentic and tell your story, loudly to people. Because what we normally do is to hold back. We all have a lot of ideas, a lot of brilliant ideas don't go anywhere because people don't speak up. So if you have an idea, if you have a passion for something, you really have to speak up and tell as many people as possible about your idea. That's number one. I've made that mistake in the past. So go out and speak to as many people as possible. Tell your story authentically and passionately. That's my tip number one. Tip number two is develop your own skills. Invest in your own development, because every minute you spend in developing yourself has so much benefits later on for you and your business. So take the time to develop your skills, whether it's communication or any other aspects of your personal life. Spend the time, because it takes time to build skills. So focus on yourself, and that returns in multiples for your business and your life.
Well, Balendran, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been definitely a pleasure of hearing your story. I mean, the amazing story, like I said, of how you came to Australia, navigated your own challenges to helping, develop and build a startup, to now building your own, and the release is coming out in April. So definitely wish you all the best, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Terrell, for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm so happy that I've been able to connect with you and tell my story and a little bit about Get Me and where that's going. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.